Hello and welcome to Craft with Sarah and day 8 of the Spring Craft Countdown, where I'm sharing a brand new spring-themed Cricut project every day for 14 days. Today we're making a shadow box, and it's a little bit of a special one. This is what it looks like. It's a gorgeous floral design with little 3D flowers in the corners and a dimensional butterfly in the middle. All the wings pop outwards to give a lovely 3D effect. Now you might be wondering, what's so special about this shadow box? Well, it's not so much the design itself, although of course it is beautiful, but it's how I've sized it and how I framed it. This all kind of came about by accident, where I cut all of the design, I put it together, and then I accidentally picked up the wrong sized frame to put it in. And that sparked an idea, which then led to a whole new way of getting layered paper crafts into a shadow box. Now you might watch this and think, Sarah, I've always done it that way, and that's absolutely fine. I might just be really behind with the curve here, but for me, this is all new, and I think it looks absolutely beautiful. It means your paper craft will sit perfectly in the frame. It won't wobble about. It will be nicely to the back of the frame, so you won't get any movement or any bits of it not showing up absolutely perfectly. So as well as the tutorial for this design in this video, I'm also going to show you the way that I will now forevermore in the future be framing my shadow boxes. Let's get started. This project is part of the 2026 Spring Craft Countdown. Download the cut files for free for the first 24 hours after this video goes live using the links in the video description or by visiting craftwithsarah.com/spring26. After 24 hours, the cut files for this project can be purchased from craftwithsarah.com/spring26 files. Or get the entire Spring Craft Countdown plus 35 extra bonus files from craftwithsarah.com/spring26 bundle. The download comes in a zip folder. You need to unzip this before uploading the SVG files into your cutting machine software. For instructions on how to do this, visit craftwithsarah.com/help and choose Cricut, Silhouette or Scan and Cut. Within there are dedicated help guides on topics such as how to upload SVGs, how to modify them to make custom projects, framing tips, and how to cut cardstock with your type of cutting machine. If you have any questions, email hello@craftwithsarah.com. Now, on with today's project. To make this project, you'll need cardstock in all of the colours of the design. It doesn't matter what thickness of cardstock or what weight you use. I tend to use card around 210 to 250 GSM, which is about 65 to 80 pounds, but it doesn't matter. You can use thicker, you can use thinner, you can use a combination, whatever you want. You'll need your Cricut machine or digital cutting machine and a mat to go in it. I prefer the light blue, light grip mats, but standard grip in the green would be okay too. You'll need some craft glue. I'm using Barely Art glue, but I also like Collal. The reason I like these two glues is they don't bend or wrinkle the card like some glues can do. The Barely Art glue comes with a very thin nozzle to make it easy to get the glue in all the little places. The Collal doesn't have that. You see it's got quite a big hole, so you might want to put it into a needle tip applicator bottle. You'll need some foam squares. I'm using these ones from Dot & Dab. Now these are thicker than the ones I would normally use. Normally I would use 2mm thick foam squares for all of my projects. These ones are 3mm, so they do have a bit more dimension between them. I bought these by mistake. It wasn't something I would normally buy, but I've got loads of them now because I did a really big order and then realised they were all the wrong thickness. So I'm trying to use them up on projects where I think it would be suitable. And this one, adding the thicker gaps in there, I think does look quite nice to make that tunnel effect. But it's up to you. If you've got thick ones, they work nicely. If you've only got the 2mm ones, it would work equally as nicely. You'll also need a square frame to put them in, known as a shadow box or a box frame. So ideally this will be a square frame that has a spacer that sits inside. I've removed the glass so that you don't see the reflection of all my camera lights. So how they normally work is you'd have the glass, then your spacer, and then a back to go on. I don't think I've quite got all my tabs folded up right, which is why that's not fitting. Anyway, just imagine that that's gone in there. It's that one that's causing the problem. There we go. And that's what it looks like from the front. A brayer tool is helpful to get your cardstock really well stuck to the mat, or you can use a scraper tool or even a rolling pin from your kitchen. If you want to make your flowers have a 3D appearance with the petals bent upwards, an easy way to do that is with an old piece of packaging foam, something nice and squidgy, and then a ball tool or similar. These ones are supposed to be for fondant icing, but I use them for my crafts. So the idea is you'd put the little flowers on there, roll around it with the ball tool, and all the petals start bending upwards nicely. And you'll need a ruler to measure everything to make sure it's all going to fit in the frame. Here's how this method of sizing the shadow boxes came about. How I've always done it before is I would measure either the size of the spacer inside my frame or the size of the back piece, and that's the size I would make the shadow box template in Design Space, and that's what I did originally for this project. So it was designed to go in this frame and it would fit in there. Now this one that I've made is a little bit different to normal because it is very, very thick. I used extra thick foam squares to add a load of dimension in there. But the problem I'd had previously with shadow boxes that don't turn out as thick as this one is that when the back's added on, quite often there's so much gap in there where the template doesn't quite fill all the holes that it ends up moving about, and you can hear it wobbling about. It doesn't sit in there securely. So I was never overly happy with how they turned out. So I'd cut this one, I'd made it, and then I went to put it in the frame. But I had accidentally, unbeknown to me, picked up a slightly bigger frame. And so when I went to put it in, I thought, oh no, I've cut it too small, it doesn't fit. But that got me thinking, what if I put the spacer in the larger frame and then this bit just happened to magically fit exactly in the middle of the spacer like that? And I thought maybe this is a way where we can make shadow boxes that will always stay to the back of the frame where we want them to be without dropping forward. I did a little bit of testing because first up, this is going to fall out because I don't have the glass in it, otherwise all you'd see is the glass in my camera reflection. So if it was like this, it fits in, it looks nice, but I'm not sure how well I'll be able to show you without the side on. It's messy around the edges. You can see where the design meets the spacer and it's not very neat. So I thought, let's develop this further. And I cut a frame the width of the whole of the shadow box to go in the front. Then put in my spacer. And then this slotted in the middle, and it's not going to fall out this time because it will be held in place by that front. And then that looks much, much prettier from the front. You don't see those join lines anymore where the edge of the cardstock is meeting the spacer. And then when the back of the frame is on, that's the wrong one, here's the right one. When that's on, everything then stays in position. However, that only works well for this one because my papercraft happened to be, I can't get it off now, happened to be about the same height as the spacer. If this had been lower than the spacer, so maybe it only came up to there and there was a gap, I was going to have the same problem I was trying to solve, that the papercraft would shake around in the frame and not sit straight and nice and central. So, revision 3. Cut another square that fits over the whole back of the frame like that. And then glue your papercraft to this. That way, the papercraft will always be held to the back of the frame in place. It won't move. The front will be covered by this lovely frame here. The back will go on perfectly. And there we go, a shadow box frame that could not be framed any better. I realised that's gone a little bit round and about to get to my final point. So rather than try and explain it again, let's take a look at an actual example. So how I would do it, and this is how I'm going to do all my shadow boxes from now on, is first up, get the size of the spacer, and we're going to measure the gap in the middle. So that is 6.75 inches. That's the size to make the SVG in Design Space, so it will sit in the middle. If you're not sure when you're cutting it, cut one layer first, perhaps the back one, which is just a square, and check it fits. Then you can resize if needed. Then we're going to also measure either the size of the outside of the spacer from here to here, or you can measure the back of the frame. It doesn't matter, you end up with the same number. So that is 7 inches. Now I've got those two measurements, let's go into Design Space. Here's the shadow box design in Cricut Design Space. You'll need to decide how you're going to fit this into your frame. If you're going to do it the way I've always previously done it, where you measure the back of the frame or the spacer from one full side all the way to the other, then you would take that measurement, click on your shadow box and change the number in here to fit. Make sure your padlock icon is closed so it changes in proportion. For example, if I had a 9-inch shadow box, I could put 9 in there and then that would be ready. However, if you're going to experiment with my new way of framing, which I think looks a lot better, then you'll need to do things a little differently. The size of the SVG design here will be the size of the gap in the middle of the spacer. So for me, if you remember when I showed you just a moment ago, that was 6.5 inches. Then we're going to make the frame for the front to cover up the edges of the spacer and a piece for the back to hold the shadow box right to the back of the frame so everything stays really securely. Go into Shapes and choose a square. And first up, we'll do the back piece. So now this is the size of the back of the frame, the brown bit, or you can measure the spacer from the outside edge of one side all the way to the outside edge on the other side. For mine, that was 7 inches. So we can make this 7. And then this will be my very back piece. And I am going to cut it in white. You won't see any of this, so it doesn't matter. White is the card that I have the most of, so I'm going to do it in that. Then we can make the frame. We'll duplicate this to make a copy. It will stay the same size, so 7 inches. And remember, this will go in the frame after the glass, if you're adding the glass. If not, it will be the first thing in there. And then the spacer will go on top. So this is going to cover up all of those messy edges. We need to add another square in the middle that's slightly smaller than the size of the SVG. So this is 6.5. I think we can probably go 6.3 and just take a little bit off each size. Drag a box around your 2 new squares and press Align and Center. That's actually not going to give a very thick frame. Let's go a bit smaller, 6.2 maybe. That's a little bit better. Some of the edges will get covered up by the frame itself, so you won't see them. So you could go a little bit more and maybe just 6.1 perhaps. We don't want to go 6 inches because that's the size of the actual frame, so then it wouldn't cover the edges anymore because you'd be able to see them in here. Maybe 6.15. If you're worried about covering up any parts of your design, what you can do is take the smaller square, change it to a guide in the operations drop down, and then place it over your design here to see what it's going to end up covering. So on this one it's fine, all it's going to cover up is the outside edge of the white. That's not going to make any difference. Okay, so let's keep it at 6.15. Change it back to a basic cut. Align those in the center and then either combine and subtract, or you can press slice. They do the same thing. So I'll go for slice and then we can delete the ones in the middle, and then we're left with just the frame. You will see parts of the frame. That's the whole point of doing it, so we'll be able to see it around the edges. So you may wish to change the colour to fit something that's already in the design. We've got this pale pink circle, and there's no other pink in the design, so I think it would be nice to have the frame in pink. So let's change that to that dusky pink, and now we're ready to cut. You can save your project if you want to, and then connect to your machine up here. Then press Make. That will separate out all the colours for you. You can change the paper size in the drop down here, and you would need to do that for each individual colour. So I could change this one as well, and then you can click and drag to move things about to take up less space on your cardstock. Just make sure when you're moving things that nothing overlaps like that, otherwise it won't cut out properly. When you're happy with how all of your colours are looking, press continue and follow the on-screen instructions to get everything cut from cardstock. Here are the pieces of my shadow box all cut out, and I've laid them on top of each other, following the assembly guide that's included in the download folder to check I'm happy with all my colours and that I haven't missed any bits out. I've got the flowers for the corners and the butterfly for the middle off to one side, as we'll do those after putting the main frame together. As with all my layered designs, we're going to start at the bottom and then work upwards. So I'll move these apart until I've got to the very bottom two layers, which is the white and then the blue for the clouds. This will be glued on. The nice thing about doing these square designs is all the layers line up along the edges, so you can get it really nice and accurate. And do make sure you are quite accurate when putting it all together, because if you go over the edge and make it all kind of bigger overall from where you've gone over, then it might not fit in your frame at the end. Next up is the pale pink layer to do with foam squares. So I'll turn it upside down, get the foam squares, and to start with, I'm going to go around the edge of the whole square, including all of the corners. Placing a new foam square about an inch apart from the previous one. Now that I've gone around the edge, I also want to add some foam squares into these pieces in the middle. If I didn't do that, there's nothing to keep the middle of the cardstock level with the edge, so you might find it dips downwards and doesn't give you as good an overall 3D appearance. So that's foam squares added in the middle, and I've tried to get one inside all of the pointy bits on the design to make sure they're nice and level too. Now you can peel the tops off to reveal the stickiness underneath. Those are all now nice and sticky, so we'll bring the base back in, line this up, and then gently drop down without putting any pressure on it yet. Doing it this way means that if you're not happy with the positioning, you can pick it up and move it because it hasn't stuck yet. Just gently placed on there, but that looks pretty accurate, so I can push down to stick. Next up is the lighter green layer to glue on top. Then we've got the darker green layer to do with foam squares. Try to get your foam in the pointy bits in the flowers and the leaves. These are all now nice and sticky, so let's line up, gently drop down, and then push if I'm happy with the positioning. Okay, there we go. Next up is the pale yellow to glue on. Next, we've got the yellow layer with the flowers to do with foam squares. Next, we've got the two purple flowers to glue on. The one with the straight edge goes down the bottom, and the one with the arrow taken out of it goes along the top with the arrow pointing upwards. Both of these will be glued on. Then we've got our last foam square layer, which is the one for the middle of the flowers. Get your foam in each of those middles so that they stand out nicely. We've then got the circles to go in the middle of the yellow flowers to glue on. Finally, glue the frame on the top. That isn't quite the right way around because I could still see some of the yellow. That might mean that I have gone over the edge at some point. That should cover it completely. I'm not sure why I can see a little bit of my dark yellow. This should be covering it up completely. What I'm going to do before you get this file is check that and make sure that my white layer is the correct size, because it looks like it's just that little bit too big in the middle at the minute. It's just the tiniest bit of yellow. But don't worry, by the time you get it, it'll be perfect. It's good that I test things on video first to make sure that they're all good. That's the main frame done. Next up, we can move on to the butterfly in the middle and the flowers in the corners. Let's start the next bit by putting the butterfly in the middle. There are quite a few butterfly pieces, so make sure you get them all in the right order, starting with the yellow at the bottom. We're going to fold up the wings gently, like that, to make it look 3D, and then add glue along the bottom of the body and stick that in place. So work out your direction first to make sure it's going to fit. Probably that way around. There we go. I can't remember which way around it is in the Design Space, and I don't have the project open to check. So I'll go down the body bit with my glue and then stick it down in the middle of the shadow box. Then get the next layer, which I've done from a silver glitter. I'm not sure that was the best idea because it's white on the back, so I'm going to see a little bit of that white, but we'll see how it goes. If you wanted it glittery both sides, you could cut the bits twice, mirror the second one so it's reversed, and glue them back to back. Then it would be pretty on both sides. Once again, glue down the middle. Line up the body with what's already there. And stick down. Then the next one, I've gone for a lighter silver. Same thing. Don't worry if your wings flatten out a bit as you're going, you can pop them out again at the end. Then it's the pale purple one. Fold up along that body. Actually, you can't really see the white on the backs of those silver bits, so that's good. Then the last bit, the decorative one, same thing. Bend the wings, add some glue, and stick in the middle. I'm going to leave that to dry before I fluff out the wings again. I'll leave it for now, but it is kind of dimensional at the minute. Some of the other wings have gone down a bit, so I will need to pop them out. But for now, that glue needs to really dry so we can move on to the flowers. If you want to, you can simply use a foam square or glue for the bigger flower, and then glue on the smaller one in the middle, and then glue the middle on top of that. So you'd end up with it looking fairly flat like that. Or you can do it similar to the butterfly, where you make it a little bit dimensional and 3D, which is what I'm going to do. I've already done 3 of them. I've got one more to show. I've got an old piece of packaging foam and a ball tool, and all you need to do is place your bit of card, the flower, onto the foam, and then push down with the ball tool and roll in a gentle circle to get the petals to all fold upwards. So by doing that, I've changed it from something that was flat into something that's now got lots of lovely realistic dimension on those petals. And then do the same for the lighter yellow one too. Then we need a little dab of glue in the middle of the bigger one, the darker yellow, and put the little one in the middle. And you're aiming for the petals of the little one to sort of fill the gaps between the petals in the bigger one. And then a little bit more glue for the middle. And then glue all of these in place. Bear in mind that if you've made a frame template, don't add the petals too close to the edge, otherwise they might not show under that frame. So I'm going to put them quite close to my main circle. I'm not sure if this glue is completely dry on the butterfly, but I'll gently fold those wings up again to give it more depth. There. That is really pretty. If I tilt it, hopefully you can see all of the depth that that's got going on now. And it should keep that when it goes into the shadow box frame. It's now time to put everything together. I'm going to start by gluing my paper craft into the middle of the biggest square that I cut, which will sit on the back of the spacer in my frame. To make sure it goes exactly in the middle, get your spacer and lie it on top of your square. And it's kind of hard to see because I've gone for a white square against my white surface, but there we go. And then you can add your glue into the middle, making sure you don't get any on the spacer. Here, I've put quite a lot of glue on there to hold it in position, and then we can drop this in so it will fit exactly in the middle. Leave that to dry for a couple of minutes. That's now dry. We can get the frame, put in the front piece that you made. Well, put in the glass first if you're using the glass. This particular shadow box kind of works best without glass because of how thick the flowers stand out from the front. But again, it depends on the foam squares. I used extra thick ones for this project. If you used regular 2mm ones, then you might find that this can fit in and the flowers won't press up on the glass. But for me, if I put the glass in, that's going to squish out all my flowers. Okay, so glass first if you're using it, then your frame, then the spacer, then your piece here, and it's got that bigger square which will sit on the back of the spacer to hold this exactly in place. There we go. And then the back of the frame, then fold it all up. I've got a little bit of space in here because I haven't used the glass. If I had the glass in, then it would be further back. But there we go. Look how perfect and beautifully that fits in there. And it's not going to move around. It's in there really securely. I'm really happy with how that turned out. So there we go. This ended up a little bit more adventurous than I imagined. I thought it was just going to be a simple shadow box and turned into a whole new way of doing them and framing them. But I'm really happy with it. and it's the perfect springtime shadow box design. I hope that you enjoyed this video on how to make this floral butterfly shadow box with your Cricut machine. If you did, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to my YouTube channel for loads more Cricut crafts and free SVGs. I'd love to know what you think about this new method for sizing and framing the designs. Let me know in the comments. Have you done it this way before? Is this new to you? Is it something you're going to try? I hope to see you tomorrow for day 9 of the Spring Craft Countdown. But for now, thank you so much for watching. Bye!